Part 1. What am I doing? Without intending it, I set out on a mission over the past year to find the best electric bass for under $1,000 US. I may need to extend that arbitrary line somewhat, since Sadowski Metro Express basses are currently selling for $1,025. Anyway, that arbitrary line has led me to try 3 different basses this year, all of which are in the ballpark of $900. I also tried a 4th bass coming in at just over $2,000, and I'll get to that as well. First, the Schecter Stiletto Studio. Weird headstock aside, I loved many elements of that bass. It looked great, it sounded great, and it felt great to play. But 3 shortcomings led me to return it. First, and this could have been repaired, it would short out if you turned the blend knob all the way to solo 1 pickup. The second and third issues were inherent to its design, and were deal breakers for me, especially since they were interconnected. I generally prefer a passive bass, but I'm not opposed to active electronics. I just need a passive mode. Otherwise, if your batteries die on stage, the instrument is unusable, unless you replace the batteries. And good luck doing that quickly on the Schecter. Not only is the battery cover screwed on, but the cavity is extremely tight, making it impossible to remove the batteries without a specialized tool. I recorded a couple of songs with that bass, and I loved how it sounded, but I guess it was called the Stiletto Studio for a reason. I want a bass I can gig with, and I didn't feel like I could do that with the Schecter. After the Schecter, I splurged on a Fender American Ultra Jazz Bass. I loved how it looked, but after months of trying, I just could not get it set up properly. There were other issues I would not have expected on a top-of-the-line production instrument. I've already complained about that bass enough though, so let's move on. Over the summer, I replaced my entire bass collection, selling 4 basses and buying the pair of Squier 40th anniversary basses I've been posting a lot of videos about. But one of the basses I sold was a fretless, and I decided I needed another one, so I went for a fretless Fender Player Jazz Bass. This is the entry-level Fender, but if price is any indication, it should be roughly twice as good as the best Squier. It decidedly was not. The electric components were higher quality, but Fender's notorious QC issues were present in abundance. The fact that I already had 2 new, better-built Squier basses that combined cost less than the Fender made it difficult to accept the flaws, so again I returned it. Which leads me to the final bass in this journey. One of the most common comments I get on my videos is, "You've got to check out Sire." So finally I did. I won't lie, the main reason I resisted Sire for so long is the weird shape of the headstock. It just looked to me like someone was trying to cut out a Fender headstock shape and the jigsaw slipped. But last week something clicked in my brain and suddenly I found the shape acceptable. Maybe it was context. The headstock looked more appealing to me when I looked at that roasted maple neck, the rolled edges and binding on the fretboard, the wood grain detail on the body. I normally don't like sunburst finishes either, but something about this one just drew me in. I had to buy it. And here it is. Part 2. First Impressions. The first thing I encountered after ripping through all of Sweetwater's excessively careful packaging, did I really just say that? Was the incredibly high-quality gig bag. Back in 1991, when I got my first Mexican-made Fender Jazz Bass for $400, it came with a hard-shell case. These days, the high-end American models still come with a case, but now most instruments under $1,000 don't even come with a flimsy gig bag. They're just packed in styrofoam. I bet this gig bag alone would sell for at least $150. If it didn't come with the bass, I'd have had to buy one, and it wouldn't be this nice. But does that mean this is really only a $750 instrument? Let's find out. But before we do that, what is this thing? It was in the gig bag. My best guess is you're supposed to stick it to the carpet near your amp, and then you can put down the bass with the strap button in the hole, so the bass isn't directly touching the floor. It's a good idea, considering the floors in some of the venues I've played in, but I'll stick with a proper guitar stand. Getting ready to play, the first thing I noticed was the extremely smooth action of the tuners on this bass. They're without a doubt the highest quality tuners I've used in years, including on my American-made Fenders. They're way better than the janky tuners on the American Ultra I bought and sold earlier this year. I felt the edges of the frets all up and down the neck. Honestly, the rolled edges didn't feel quite as smooth as I had hoped. Not as good as my old American Professional P bass, but a close second. There are definitely no sharp fret edges. Overall, the neck looks and feels great. I love the satin finish on the back, and the glossy, deep-roasted maple look of the fretboard with block inlays. The finish on the body is amazing, and as I said, I'm generally not a sunburst fan, but I do like this tobacco sunburst look, where the edges still have a hint of wood grain showing. The back of the body looks incredible in dark brown with visible wood grain. The bridge is similar to the Fender high-mass bridge I've been disparaging, which itself is designed after the legendary Leo Quan badass bridge from the 70s. This one seems to fix some of Fender's design flaws, though. The knobs are nice, and oh man, are there a lot of them. I tried to figure out on my own what they all do, before finally scanning the QR code to download the manual and make sure I got it right. One surprise, the active mid-range is a stacked knob, and the bottom controls the mid-frequency. I've never had an active bass with that feature. Bonus, you can use it like a wah-wah pedal. The overall setup of the bass seemed good right out of the box. No need for any adjustments to the action, although I think the intonation is just slightly off. For once, I'm not in a rush to mess with it though. First impressions, all good. I'm even coming around to the headstock. It's less weird looking in person. Part 3, Tone Demos. I'm not going to do a full range tone demo on this bass because, and I did the math on this, if I demonstrated every tonal possibility, even if I just set the pots at 0, 50% and 100%, there would be 252 permutations. Even if I only played each one for 10 seconds, the demo portion of this video would be 42 minutes long. You don't want to watch that, and I don't want to make it. So let's focus on 4 combinations I'm likely to use in real-world contexts. I'm going to call them James, Getty, Jocko, and Marcus. Part 4, Head to Head, 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 to Head. I've already talked a lot in this video, and there's more to come, so I'll get right to the point with some pro and con lists. Let's put the Sire P8 head-to-head to head with the Schecter Stiletto Studio, Fender Player Jazz Bass, and the Fender American Ultra Jazz Bass. Schecter Stiletto Studio. Pro. Distinctive modern look despite the headstock. Excellent build quality. Tonal flexibility. Con. Defective pan pot. No passive mode. Inaccessible battery compartment. Fender Player Jazz Bass. Pro. Classic Fender look. Good hardware. Great sound. Con. Rough fingerboard edges. Off-center truss rod. Overall sloppy QC. Fender American Ultra Jazz Bass. Pro, classic Fender look, cool finish, block inlays. Con, problematic bridge, sticky tuners, couldn't get a decent setup, lacked classic jazz bass tone. Sire Marcus Miller P8. Pro, excellent hardware and build quality, active passive switch, and a proper battery compartment. Huge range of tonal options, great finish, especially the neck and fretboard. High quality gig bag included. Con, that headstock. Part 5, Conclusions. So why am I on this restless quest for a new bass, and why am I stuck in the sub $1,000 price range? I think partly it's just fun to try new basses. There are a lot of options in appearance and features that make the electric bass a much more varied type of instrument than the woodwinds I play. I've owned the same 2 saxophones since the early 1990s, and I have never wanted to replace them. Today, even a student-grade woodwind instrument costs about $1,000, while pro models can easily reach into 5 figures. You can still get a decent bass for $500 to $1,000. But that restless exploration of relatively inexpensive instruments does still add up, even if you can sell the ones you decide aren't for you. I've purchased a few expensive basses over the years, USA-made Fender and Music Man, and just like the cheap ones, I eventually sold them. Honestly, those instruments just aren't that much better than the cheap ones. Maybe a really top-end custom shop model would be worth it, but for me, I doubt it. I think I've stabilized on a new collection for now. The Squier 40th Anniversary Jazz Bass with DiMarzio upgrades may still be my main gigging bass, at least for outdoors or dive bars. The Squier 40th Anniversary P-Bass is now going to be my modding/tinkering platform. And the Sire Marcus Miller P8 is probably what I'll be using on all of my recordings, as well as most rehearsals and indoor gigs. I may still end up buying a fretless, if the GNL Tribute Kiloton ever becomes available again. And of course, one of these days I'm going to have to check out a Sadowski Metro Express. In the meantime, this is likely to be my last bass demo video for a while. I've got some musical commitments coming up that will force a change of direction. And I do mean musical. I'm playing clarinet and bass clarinet in the pit orchestra for A Christmas Carol at the Chaska Valley Family Theater in early December. If you're in the Minneapolis area, check it out. I've put a link in the description.